I'm Dave Greenwood, and this is Overcoming Distractions. If you are an adult with ADHD, a busy professional, an entrepreneur, a high achiever, or just need some strategies to navigate your adult ADHD, you're in the right place. Who am I? I'm an entrepreneur with ADHD and the author of 2 books, Overcoming Distractions and Overcoming Burnout. I coach and mentor people just like you, and together we navigate the ups and downs of adult ADHD. From getting out of our own way to helping people just like you thrive in the workplace. That's what I do. Want more info on working with me? Hit overcomingdistractions.com. Ready? Let's get to today's podcast. All right, gang, we're back. You've landed on Overcoming Distractions, and as that super impressive announcer just said, that this is the place for you, the busy professional with the demanding career and kids and soccer games and everything else going on in your life, and you just happen to be wired like most of us out there. If you have adult ADHD, you fall into that category, or you think you have ADHD. We don't need a piece of paper to hang out here. So, all right, what I love to do is I love to get not only street smart advice, but just, tips and tricks and stories about people who have navigated the world of adult ADHD in a demanding career, high performers, high achievers. I think we learn a lot from that. Whether that person has ADHD or not doesn't really matter to me. I think there's lessons to be had by many of those. So we're going to do that today. So I have John Mollura. He spent 15 years leading mission critical field testing, supporting NASA, elite U.S. military units. We're going to learn about that in a minute, I hope. Where precision, clarity, real world execution mattered every day. I hope that sparks your interest, because those are a few words that I think a lot of us need a little more kind of honing of our skills. I'll put it that way, me included. So I'm not just throwing everybody under the bus. I'm throwing myself under the bus here. So, but John was also diagnosed with ADHD as an adult, which he told me kind of explained a lot. We're going to get into that too. And because of his professional career in what I just mentioned, he says that we're actually wired to see these patterns, especially in chaos, rather quickly. We may forget to shut the oven off or pick up the kids at school or hand in that expense report, but there's always some positives to the ADHD brain. So welcome, John.
Hey, I'm so glad to be here, David. I really appreciate the time to talk to your audience.
Yeah. Give me a 60-second understanding of your work with, NASA, military, et cetera. What was your, I'm sure not every day was the same, but kind of give me the basic kind of understanding of what your kind of role was.
Absolutely. So when I was in that career for 15 years in test operations, our job at the end of the day was to make sure that when the thing was supposed to do whatever it was supposed to do, whether it was on Mars or keeping the pilot safe of an F-35, our team's job was to make sure that the confidence was as high as it could be that it was going to achieve mission success. So our job was making sure that it met all the requirements that the government would hand to the company I worked for. We're talking like hundreds of requirements in these giant boring documents, which I don't have to tell you required all of my focus to try to get through.
Every sliver of
Oh my
brain
gosh.
power. Yeah.
Right. But what that was, you can imagine like how complex the systems are to land a robot on Mars successfully, or to keep a pilot alive in an environment that's saturated with chemical warfare agent. My ability to look at these requirements and see how everything connected, how all these seemingly random pieces and segmented stuff of information click together,
Yeah.
and how to make sure that we were going to be able to test it on the ground or in a space simulation chamber or on a rocket sled track like Wile E. Coyote style out in the desert.
Now you're talking my
Right?
language.
Yeah, right. My spirit animal, Wile E. Coyote, is right behind
Yeah.
me here. So, that was my job for 15 years. We had to be able to understand what it was supposed to do, put it all together in a way that would turn into real world success.
Yeah. Wow. Well, sounds like a tall order to me. So
Indeed, it was.
I'm a welding school flunk out, so I'm interested to hear of how you kind of used your ADHD brain. So, but
Yeah,
so you did mention to me that you were diagnosed with ADHD as an adult.
yeah.
So, and I think everybody kind of pulls something out of that differently. But what did that kind of moment or piece of paper kind of do for you? How did it kind of make you understand your past, so to speak?
Yeah, the piece of paper was just kind of the end of all of this journey. And what actually got me started on it was a song written by Penn Holderness. He and his wife Kim are social media creators. They run like the Amazing
Right.
Race and went on it.
Mm.
And Penn a couple years ago wrote a song about living with ADHD. And as he's talking about it and like walking out in the mud in your socks and leaving your laptop in random places and not closing the cabinet doors and like sucking on your t-shirt collar, I'm like, I've never felt so seen.
Yeah.
I had no idea. It was never on my radar that I had ADD
Mm.
because growing up in the 80s and 90s, the kids with ADHD were the ones, especially the boys were the ones bouncing off the walls and would have red dye number 40 and would just be going bonkers.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
didn't have the hyperactivity part. Mine was strictly focus. So a couple years ago, whenever I heard that song by Penn, I started researching it and then read their book called ADHD is Awesome.
Yeah. I got it
I was,
here. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah, it's
Mm.
right behind me. It's like,
Yeah.
and when I read it, I'm like, oh my gosh, all these pieces just start clicking into place. And I thought maybe it wasn't a matter of me just having to try harder to remember to let my dog inside,
Mm.
to turn off the oven, to put the laundry in the dryer like I told my wife I would. Maybe there's something going on here.
Doing work for NASA, U.S. military, as you
Mhm.
as you mentioned. How do you think your brain wiring helped you succeed? Okay, so we left the oven on. Whatever. The dog is wherever, maybe hungry. Okay,
Yeah,
we've established that and all the other little things.
right.
Okay, but yeah, you've had a career of using your brain for good in some way.
Yeah,
So, and I'm assuming maybe a little bit high pressure, as you just mentioned. So,
sure.
how did your brain, whether you knew you had ADD or not, help you
Right.
succeed in that high pressure environment? Because, I know people that are, when we've talked to them on the show, or I've worked with them individually, who they're everything from a PhD level, they're a sole proprietor, they're a business, they're running, whatever. I mean,
Mhm.
the common theme is like they're getting pulled in a million directions.
Right.
So, how did your brain help you in working constantly in high pressure?
Having that continual switch
Hmm.
between different high pressure things,
Really?
man, that just lights me up. Like I can do that. My brain's always bouncing from one thing to the other. So like when we be like out in the field, like I said, like out in the Mojave Desert, and we're working on something, it's like, oh my gosh, the widget's not going to be here. What are we ever going to do? My brain would automatically like just kick into high gear and be like, okay, well that thing's very similar to this, this, and this, and we could go get this part at Ace Hardware, and then we could put it together like Apollo 13, Apollo 13 style
Like a
with some duct tape
Mythbusters
and some zip
episode,
ties.
you know?
Right? Yeah. Oh yeah, MythBusters. I love those guys. Um, but yeah, that's how my brain, and that's why I excelled. Where a lot of other people, for better or worse, would freeze because they would start overthinking things. My brain was just wired for action and to look at all the things around me, and it was just almost like they would be like hot, they would like light up like in a video game. Like there's the item you need to get, and like I could just put things together just on the spot, and
Yeah.
I craved that.
I do truly believe that we kind of see things that our quote unquote normal friends don't, right? I mean, or colleagues or
100%. Yeah.
neurotypical. Let's use the more appropriate term there. But you get what I'm saying is that like
Hear you.
I do believe we see things that others do not. We see a way to solve a problem or a path that others do not. So in terms of, I think you said, our same brain that forgets things also sees those patterns, especially in chaos. So, what did that look like in real life to you? Is there, some examples that, obviously without disclosing, top secret
Sure.
information, but,
Oh, yeah.
is there a scenario that you encountered that, that could help us understand that?
Sure. We were down at NASA's Langley Research Center in Virginia, and we were working on our team's job was also we'd be responsible for putting things on the literal the spacecraft, like with the nuts and bolts and tying things and all that. And we were doing something, and we found that there was an issue with the spacecraft.
Mhm.
Something wasn't fitting right. And everyone's just standing around scratching their heads. They're like, well, we can't just undo everything. Like, that's going to put us behind schedule, and we're not going to get to the launch site and blah, 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 blah. And I looked at it and I saw a 4x4 on the ground, and we had some ratchet straps, things tighten things
Yeah,
down with in
yeah,
the back that
yeah.
no one can ever seem to figure out how to get them undone, without
Exactly.
losing part
Nobody
of
can
your
figure out how to
thumb,
use these
right?
things.
Yeah. Yeah. So we had a 4x4, and we had these ratchet straps. And bear in mind, like, this is like spacecraft hardware. Like, it's literally getting launched into space in a couple weeks. And I just looked at it, I said, well, we have these like little tabs on this thing. Why don't we just hook the ratchet strap, wrap it around a steel pole that's like in the middle of the workshop, put this 4x4 here so we don't damage the spacecraft between this like just nasty steel pole holding up the
Mhm.
building. And let's just crank this thing with a ratchet strap. Like, they're looking at all the other, like, the NASA engineers, because we were civilian contractors. They were looking at it, they're like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "It's either that or we delay the schedule."
Yeah.
I'm like, "What's the worst that's going to happen?" Which is kind of my credo. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like, let's just try. If it doesn't work, then we'll drop back and punt. So sure enough, we did that. Ran the ratchet strap down. Thing just went, dropped right into place, and everyone went, "Oh, all right. Um, well, let's go grab a beer." Mission accomplished. And away it went
So
to
it
the
didn't
launch
end
site.
up like the coyote, you know?
No, not that time. I do have lots of stories where the uh, the appropriate term was unintentionally, energetically disassembled.
Oh, I see. Okay.
What that people are like,
I
what's
got a
that mean? I'm
pretty
like,
good idea what that is.
yeah, went boom, unintentionally. But
Uh,
yeah, that's an example of where we pulled a Panama, so to speak. Just
do you do you feel, or I guess let me back up. Why do you feel that people in these demanding careers, high achievers, a high pressure
Mhm.
environment in the workplace or what have you, why do some of us struggle to recognize this as a strength? Because again, I know people who come to me, I think the majority of people come to me, probably should have come to somebody like us, long before that.
Yeah,
It's gotten to the point where now they have to stop the bleeding, so to speak. But they're wrapped up in all the negatives, right?
right.
So I can't work like this anymore. I'm missing deadlines. I'm not getting back to clients, et cetera, et cetera. But why do you think we struggle to recognize those strengths?
Because we're the world is geared for, what is neurotypical? Is that the politically correct term? People without
Yeah,
ADHD, people that are neurotypical, like, the world's made for that.
yeah,
And as a child, especially when you're developing, you're if you're the way you're naturally wired is quote unquote wrong, or there's something wrong with it, or if it's getting you in trouble, you're going to suppress that, right? Because at the end of the day, like, human psychology is, we are essentially pack animals. We want to fit into the group, the tribe, the group, the clan, the club, whatever it is, the fourth grade classroom. We don't want to a lot of times stand out.
yeah.
So we try to assimilate. And a lot of people with ADHD, are incredibly intelligent.
Yeah,
So
no, I agree.
we can fake it. We can, but it's the round peg in the square hole kind of thing though. It doesn't quite fit. But like my journey was like going through school and university was I was smart enough to be able to make up for, what I felt were deficiencies. When really what it turned out, I just wasn't wired to remember the deadlines, to remember the things off the top of my head. So once I got understanding of what how ADHD manifests itself, the key was not using it as an excuse. I used it as an explanation.
Yeah, no, and I think that's important,
Yeah.
and we need to we need to have that conversation, right?
Right.
Because I think a lot of us with ADHD, even adults, I was joking with somebody, I'm like, we get really good at apologizing, right? I mean, just like we're like masters at apologizing. So
Sure.
yeah, because we're we're in that situation. So,
Yes.
we didn't get the thing to the boss or the client on time, and and well, uh, let me explain that I have ADHD versus like, oh, I'm super sorry, I dropped the ball and what have you. So, but you also mentioned something about patterns and even growing up, and I've used this example a million times, but it is the report cards. It is for some of us that didn't do well in school. A lot of people, as you mentioned, they have done well in school. The grades were great. Again, I've worked with PhDs who just need to figure out how to get a to-do list done, right?
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of people with ADHD are super smart. Okay. Some of us have report cards that we now laugh at, but there's a pattern there, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how, jumping off that, in your work now, how can we start to shift from, something's wrong with me to this is an actual advantage?
Right. So it becomes owning your strengths and owning the areas where you need to enact some kind of guardrails or assistance. Right.
Yeah.
So if we know that logistics is not our strong suit, then what kind of guardrails can we put in place? For instance, like I got a bajillion sticky notes around. I utilize, the reminder on my phone, the reminder on my home system. Like I probably have no joke, like 20 to 30 reminders going off a day.
Yeah.
So it's how can I do that? And then it's one thing to have the reminder, then it's another thing to actually take the action,
Yeah.
right? So a real simple framework is this going to take me more than 30 seconds, a minute? Well, then let me just do it. But it's not you're just doing it to do it. If we have a deeper understanding of whenever we actually do what we say we're going to do, whether it's the report for your boss or flossing your teeth every night, like you promised your dentist you would,
Hmm.
when we start keeping promises to ourselves, what that actually does is that actually builds up our confidence.
Yeah. No, I believe that. Yeah.
So if we have the mindset of when the reminder goes off, we say, it's not about doing the task. If we have this vision of like, it's like we want to grow our confidence so we can take more decisive action in our life, we need to ask ourselves a question like, okay, can I do this 30-second task now to honor my future self? Because there's nothing worse than like getting and meeting your future self and they're like, dude,
You never flossed.
yeah, you never flossed. Like, what's your issue? Now we got to tell the dentist we didn't do it. So
Hmm.
if we can change the mindset of like I have to do this, or I'm evil, I'm the worst person in the world if I don't do this. If we can change it and be like, no, this is actually just going to build my confidence, so I can really keep living the life I want at an even more elevated level. That can change a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, the I think the process of doing those little things also, I think, help us slowly build that kind of routine, right?
Yeah,
So, it does, I think, for a lot of us, maybe not all of us, but gets easier if we're doing those kind of tiny little things on a consistent basis. This is where I think it doesn't have to be ADHD advice. This is, James Clear's,
yeah,
Atomic Habits. You read a third of the book, you got the gist of what he's trying to get across, right? It's just like
right.
Just floss your teeth every day. It takes 20 seconds.
Right.
These little tiny incremental shifts that
Right.
move the needle in your favor. And to your point, it does build that confidence. It builds that, I can do this. It's becoming
Hmm.
part of who I am, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because your brain eventually gets enough information that says, oh, when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And your brain doesn't really differentiate between something big like I'm going to start my own business or I'm going to floss every night. Once you get those reps in with those little teeny tiny things that set you up for success, when those bigger commitments come up, your brain's already going to be wired for, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that. I will figure it out.
Yeah. The I did this once just to test myself because no one likes to empty the dishwasher, right? So I'm like, you know what? I hate doing this. I walk by it over and over again. I'm going to set a timer. I want to see how actually long it takes me to
Yeah.
empty the dishwasher. I mean, it was under 2 minutes,
Yeah.
when it came right down to it, but I just buckled down and just put everything back on the cabinets. I'm like, so why do I just keep walking by this thing?
Yeah.
I was just telling myself that it's a pain in the ass,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it
And
might be, but it's not totally going to throw you off course.
no, and the thing with that is whatever it is, whatever we're putting off, we need to recognize nothing lives in our head rent free.
That's
Like
true. Yeah.
every time you walk past that dishwasher, like that's chewing up some processing power in David's brain. That
Hmm.
could be doing some much more big, awesome things than like walking by and kind of beating yourself up and like, oh, I should do that and I should do that. This sucks. Yeah, like whatever that story is.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So
that's
nothing lives.
why, when I would do large projects, when I had a full roster of PR clients,
Hmm.
I would call what it was called clear the decks. Like I had
Hmm.
five little things to do, but you're right, they're taking up space in your head, and
Yeah.
it could be 2 minutes, it could be 5 minutes, it could be whatever.
Yeah.
But you get those out of your way, and then that paves the way for deeper work, which I think is honestly our best friend.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
mean, long chunks of time for uh, an ADHD and the knowledge working setting, I'll put it that way, um, is our best friend. I'm completely convinced of that.
Oh
So
yeah. If it's something we're engaged in and enjoy, I mean, the hours disappear. It just happened to me this morning,
yeah,
like working on
yeah.
something.
And I
And
don't think that's hyper focus. I think that's more of a flow. We can
yeah.
tee ourselves up for flow where we're getting stuff done. It feels good, maybe a tiny bit of a challenge, so to
Yeah.
speak. But we're making progress. So our brain gets, quite frankly, lubed up to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't do that 30 minutes here and 20 minutes here when you've got all these other tiny little things that are, like you say, taking up space in your head. So did speaking of shit tons of stuff to do, so did you in your experience ever find that you walked into work where everything felt important? There was that uh, lack of clarity, so to speak. Was that something that you had to manage?
That's not something that I really struggled with because again, that's actually where my pattern recognition
Hmm.
would really kick in. And I never realized I was a superpower until I started doing coaching
Yeah.
years ago. So that's actually exactly the pocket I sit in, especially with high performers, is I help those high performers that feel like everything's important, everything's a priority, and they just become paralyzed. They bounce from thing to one thing to the other. They don't get anything done. So what I help them do is really get clear and distill down like what is the next thing you need to do to move the needle forward on that
Yeah.
on whatever that is. So I didn't realize that was a superpower because I just always naturally did that. And that's the thing with superpowers, you don't realize them until you get perspective from other people.
Yeah. But I do think a lot of people do struggle with that,
Oh,
is
100%.
that everything is on fire when they
Hmm.
get to their desk at, you know, 9 a.m. or whenever they get
Right.
to it, which I think leads to actually getting nothing done
100%.
because you're just burning so much energy
Hmm.
uh, trying to decide what to actually get done. So, um, so I think that's an important kind of distinction to that is, how do we gain that clarity?
Yep.
Maybe it is pattern recognition where this is how I'm going to kind of operate when I've got 100 things on the to-do list, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I have a framework that I'd love to share with your audience to help them with specifically that, like how do I get clear on the next right action?
Mm,
And this is my HITS framework,
yeah.
HITS.
Mm,
So the H stands for halt. Like when you are just looking at this sea of things to do and everything's on fire, the first thing you need to do is halt, hit pause, and just take a couple deep breaths. And then the I is identify what's immediately important. And
yeah.
that's the million dollar question. Well, how do I tell what's immediately important? It's like, well, have you ever actually sat down and like whether you need to write it out, type it up on a Word document, like whatever you need to do, get clear on what everything is that's cluttering up your head. And once you do that, because you've taken the moment to pause, you can when you look at it, we'll be able to eventually see what the priority is.
Yeah.
Like there are things that's like, okay, that's not due for 3 weeks. I need to get this done so I can go on travel this afternoon. Like that's the immediately important thing. It's like, okay, so I've paused, I've halted, I've identified what's immediately important. Now we need to take decisive action.
Yeah.
Right? We don't need to overthink it. We need to get to 70% of the solution, like General Colin Powell said. Get to
Mm-hmm.
70% of the solution, take decisive action. And then the S is the part where a lot of people miss it, is set a deadline for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because there's a big difference between saying, like, I'm going to work on this today, as opposed to saying, I'm going to finish this by 3:30 p.m. today, Friday, March 27th at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah.
And I say Eastern time because when I did government work, we were doing a joint military program, and we were trying to get the pilots from the Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps to agree, fighter pilots. You can imagine that was a very tall order,
Right.
and it very quickly just got out of hand. So the government brought this project manager in, and I'll never forget, we were sitting on a phone call one day, and he said, "All right, Mollura, when are you going to get that test procedure done?" I said, "I'll get it done by end of day Thursday." He goes, "What the heck does that mean?" I said, "By the end of the day." He goes, "No, what time?"
Mm-hmm.
I said, "At 4:30 p.m." He goes, "And?" I was younger, I was a smart ass. I go, "And what?" He goes, "Hey, jackass." He said, we have team members on this call from California to the United Kingdom. What 4:30 are you talking about? I don't want the guys in England staying up till 10 p.m. waiting for your
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
procedure. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I said, okay, I'll get it done by Thursday at
Yeah.
4:30 p.m. Eastern time. He goes,
But that's that
perfect.
clarity piece, right?
Dude, clarity. Like,
Yeah.
and as soon as that hit, like that really clicked the switch for me. So it's the HITS framework.
Yeah.
Halt when you get overwhelmed. Yeah. Go ahead.
But I think, halt, pause, whatever. I don't think those many of us with ADHD take enough time to pause. We just walk into chaos and we just figure we just got to dive headfirst into something
Right.
versus, like you say, hit the pause button, halt, stop. Let's let's just take a few minutes to like methodically kind of figure this out. A lot of people with ADHD miss that first step.
Right.
And I'm sorry, it is what it is. Go ahead and at me, but that's what we do. So,
Yeah.
and I think the second thing is you said something like, does this need to be done today or was this on my to-do list and it's not due for 3 weeks? There is I think, a massive difference between procrastination and strategic delay, right?
For sure. 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
So just
Procrastination is
because you
actually fear-based. Strategic delay is, I mean,
is smart.
yeah, it's a decision.
Yeah, it's a decision. It's like this was on my to-do list, but you know what? It ain't due for 3 weeks.
Right.
So let's push this off. That's a smart move.
Let's set a
So,
deadline before we push it off and be like, I'm going to set a reminder to come back to this Tuesday because I'm going to forget about it in
right.
about 2 minutes. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So you kind of alluded to it, but let's kind of give people some kind of things to walk away with because that's what we do here.
Love
So,
it.
um, is there a aside from the methodology that you just went through, is there a simple way someone can start kind of filtering those competing priorities today? Is it just going back to that methodology you just talked to? Is it, is it training yourself to hit the pause button? What is it?
Absolutely. So if you're not used to pausing, and this is a skill I had to work, I mean, it's no different than being able to run further faster than you used to be able to do. Like that takes practice.
Yeah,
So the first thing we need to do is switch out of autopilot and just at least become aware that we're not pausing. Because if you're on autopilot and you just keep going through the motions, well, nothing's going to change. So just start to become aware of when you're rushing headlong into something. Because once you start building that awareness, that's when you're going to be able to say, like, oh, right, I need to just pump the brakes here for a moment.
yeah,
And it's real critical not to slide into judgment about yourself because you can if you can be aware, like, oh, I did it again. I'm the worst person in the world. The posture to take is instead of judgment is awareness. So that's why I have my free navigators class where I teach people how to switch out of autopilot and into awareness and also out of judgment into curiosity. I have 3 questions in the free masterclass on my website, johnmollura.com/free stuff, where they can go to and learn those 3 questions to really become aware and curious about things, which is what I call the seeker mindset.
yeah,
It's you got to get the reps. You got to get the reps, but it begins with awareness and curiosity.
yeah. No, there was I'll say this again, my first book, we got tactical. I never wrote a book before, to be perfectly honest with you, but I would have spent an enormously more, uh, a ton more time on self-awareness.
Mm,
Um, because I don't think I did it, uh, I didn't put enough in there in the book. I didn't give it the attention, no pun intended, it
yeah,
deserved about really becoming self-aware. That can be on a daily basis or a more 30,000 square foot level, you know?
absolutely.
There's a lot of things we need to learn about ourselves. In terms of pattern recognition, how can ADHD professionals demanding careers, how can they intentionally use that pattern recognition, whether it's in their work or they're running a business?
Yeah. So once you become aware and you take a moment, you halt.
Hmm.
That's why I say identify what's immediately important. And a lot of folks with ADHD, like myself included, like if we're given just like either like a jumble of words up on a whiteboard or on a sheet of paper or in a PowerPoint or a Canva, and you look at it, we can process the information very quickly.
Yeah.
So that pattern recognition, like we can bounce between the different points and be like, okay, I can kind of see the pattern emerging out of this. And then the pro move is to have someone who has a different mindset run that decision by them, be like, here's what I'm thinking we're going to do. Did I miss anything?
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, how the hell did you see that? How didn't you?
Well,
Is what I always want
that
to
should be
say.
a confidence booster too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you get a lot of people say like, how'd you come up with this? Or how'd you see this? Just, take that as a win. Like write that down because we're so used to beating ourselves up about missing the deadline or whatever it
Yeah.
is. Yeah. Take credit for the wins when you get them.
Right. No, and it could be a tiny win. Yeah. It could be just
100%.
like I saw something somebody else did and that changed the trajectory of this project, so to speak.
Absolutely. I,
Yeah.
I keep a running list. I call it my archive of awesome in my phone.
Yeah.
I have a Google Note where I just write whenever I have little wins.
Yeah. What's the most important thing people can walk away with from our conversation today?
I mean, big picture, you're not broken, right? You're not broken. You have a set of skills that whenever you can give yourself grace and really get curious and aware of your behaviors, they can be tremendous leverage for success in your personal life or professional life.
Yeah.
But we also need to, take the yin to that yang and
Yeah.
realize there are areas that that we don't do as well. And then it's a matter of not judging ourselves, but being curious about what can I do to put guardrails around myself, whether that's people or technology or sticky notes, like whatever it is, to help me there. So I can really create the leverage with the things I can do because I've been curious and I've really leaned into what I can do that most people can't. But then also own the fact that, yeah, I'm gonna need some bolstering up on some other things and not beating ourselves up.
Yeah. I say if you're a busy person with ADHD, you do you when it comes to what works, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, but the key is not to just throw your hands up and be like, "Oh, I have ADHD,"
Yeah.
and to which I would say, "So,
Yeah.
what are we going to do about that?" That goes
Yeah.
back to it being an explanation, not an excuse.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a great takeaway too.
Yeah,
So, yeah, put up those guardrails. Protect
absolutely.
yourself from yourself, right?
Yeah, yeah, and figure out ways to set you up for success.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right. How can people find you?
Yep, I am on all the socials and my website. It's just John Mollura, JohnMollura. So if you like, comment. I put tons of content out there, lots of thoughts, I always try to have it be something practical and tactical people can do almost daily. Um, Love to have the interactions with people. If they're interested in that navigators masterclass I talked about, it's just johnmollura.com/free stuff. And that helps them switch out of autopilot and into awareness and also get out of that judgment mindset and become curious about you and your skills.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with us for a little bit. Come back anytime. This was a great conversation, and I know there's a lot to take away from that. So, from your experience. So,
Yeah,
so thanks so much.
I appreciate it, David.